All right. So now let's take a look at women. Women over the course of the 1940s gained a fair amount of independence and a renewed sense of purpose and things like that out of their contribution to the war. But in the 1950s, women are going to take a little bit of a step back. The emergence of suburbia is going to place a lot of pressure on the family and particularly on women to live up to that promise of freedom that we've come to define now in the 1950s. So immediately following the war, we're going to see a very sharp decline of women working in the 1950s, but the number of women at work will actually begin to rise. And by 1955, it will exceed the World War II levels. So women aren't going to completely disappear from the labor force. However, they are going to be extremely limited. Women will largely work in quote unquote pink collar jobs, that is, things like secretaries, teachers, retail, and most frequently, they will work while they are unmarried. For example, teachers had to be unmarried. Once you got married, you could not be a teacher anymore in that period. Most of these jobs as well were usually part-time with the aim to support the middle class lifestyle, not necessarily to pursue personal fulfillment or an independent career. And on average, these women earned roughly 60% of the income of men. So in the 1950s, the ideal was, again, this notion of the man as the breadwinner and the woman as the homemaker. And this was reinforced through advertisements, as you can see in these images here. Some of them, actually, I would say probably both of them, highly offensive to modern eyes. But films, TVs, ads, all of them reaffirmed this ideal of the man as the breadwinner, the head of the household, and the woman as the kind of happy homemaker. And the primary goal of women was to marry and to have a family. And we do get some affirmation of this ideal. Both men and women are marrying younger. The average age for men to get married was 22. The average age for women was 20. Divorce rate dropped significantly over the course of the 1950s. And those married couples are having more children. The American population rose by nearly 30 million in the 1950s, mostly as a result of couples having more children at this time as well. Separate spheres are also going to be used as a Cold War weapon, and generally speaking, feminism itself, much like any other form of dissent against the status quo, will start to disappear in the sense that it'll fade into the background. It won't go away completely. Sometimes outspoken feminism was dismissed as evidence of a mental disorder, a failure to accept the quote maternal instinct. But working women, even in the 1950s, while not necessarily seeking a revolution, will, as they did during the previous decade of World War II, develop a heightened sense of expectation and empowerment as a result of their employment and transmit those ideas to their daughters. Those daughters will be the ones that will fuel a feminist resurgence in the 1960s, the later 1960s. And so while this decade represents kind of a step backward for women, it's laying the foundation for that second wave of feminism that will be characteristic of the late 1960s and 1970s.